it became a kind of family place, this whole beach. As you heard from Ruth, it continued. It wasn't just the family house up there. But I remember my parents, it was their first house they ever had. The first house they'd owned. He'd been a teacher. Wow. And he always took jobs that had a house going with the grass. Had to pay rent, but never owned a house until he retired. Gosh, this is a bit scary. He wanted to borrow money at the age of 68 or something. Anyway, they finally got a house done, and Nick was the designer. We went up, had a little peek this morning, and it's looking good. It's all well kept, and I have met the owners before, and they know all about Nick and what he did for the house and for them as well. Let me read these tributes. Firstly, from John. When we heard the news of Nick's death, nearly just 2 years ago, John, as the eldest brother, put this obituary in the New Zealand Herald. It's just brief, but I'll read it. Nicholas David Wilcox, Nick, passed away on 6th of December at his home in Currumbin Waters, Queensland, surrounded by his family. Loved husband of Ruth, father of Marcus, Justine, Nehemiah, and Nut. Dear brother of John, Mike, and Helen. Nick will be remembered as a creative architect, keen yachtsman, outstanding jazz double bass player in his earlier years. He's a founding member of the Auckland's Bridge City Jazzmen and beyond.
Beautiful.
It's just brief, but he's highlighting things that John remembers from Nick's life here in Auckland. The second one is from Maya Wilcox. That's John's second daughter, Nick's niece, in Hawke's Bay. And she was going to be here this morning. And she's gone down with COVID. So none of the Hawke's Bay lot are here. This is what she said. She posted it on the New Zealand Herald website. Love and thoughts to our whānau in Australia and here in New Zealand at this time. Memories of family get-togethers at Campbell Bay and those who have gone before us. Photos and stories of music and yachts. No doubt just a small and maybe a distant part of Nick's life. 2 house designs he has at least had a hand in. I've experienced one house up there, of course. Modern in their time and still working today and not at all boring. Distance and space, time and perhaps understandings of each other has meant little time together for many years. A strong connection to my cousin Justine and love for all those left behind. And a little bit of Te Reo. Ki hora te marino, kia papa, o namu te moana. Te tere te karihiro, te nua te hare ampuni. Wai ki hararangi, oraha, te te arangi. Aya.
Ameni.
Very nice. The Maori connection in our family is that John's first wife was Maori, Lily, and these are her 2 daughters, Hana and Maya. So.
And the third tribute is our dear Justine. She forgot she'd put it in there. Anyway, I found it. It's a lovely photo.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's beautiful.
That's at her own wedding.
Oh.
Nick. R.I.P. Dad. We didn't see each other much, but we were together for your 2 daughters' wedding. It was special.
It was, yeah.
Your 2 grandsons, Zach and Sam, also played jazz at the Tauranga Jazz Festival, just like you did. Also, I married a Nick who also played Justine. So those are photos
Thank you.
out of the archives of the computer. I thought I'd just share those with you. If I could I have a moment or two to my own thoughts?
Absolutely.
So greetings to you all. tēnā koutou katoa. Just a family gathering like we've never had before. Happy and sad at the same time. But I get the wobbles, I don't know why. But anyway, I'm just so glad to have the opportunity to say something about Nick. I'll just briefly touch on our growing up, because my memories and involvement with Nick are the early days particularly. Later on we didn't see so much of each other. I just want to highlight a few things in our earlier life that where we grew up very closely. We were born on the same day, which helps. And we were born in Te Aroha, and in the maternity hospital there. And many years later, I was over there. I thought I'll find out where this place is. So I went along. I asked someone. I said, "Where's the old maternity hospital?" I said, "It's over there." So I went and knocked on the door. He said, "Oh, I was born here." An old guy came to the door and said, "This is now an old people's home." I haven't had any births yet for a long time. Anyway, we were so young we didn't even know Te Aroha. We were too young to know it. Dad moved on to another job in Taranaki and didn't last long there either, and we didn't know that place called Oahu Beach. But the places we knew vividly well were Ohura in the tea country, now a bit of a ghost town, but a thriving coal mining and timber town and farming area in its heyday. And that's where we grew up and learned things. Family life. We had trooks, a cow. They used to milk the cow.
To the apple tree,
No?
the cow was tied to the apple tree.
Yes. There was self-sufficiency in our family. Not much money, but Dad grew everything. And he knew farmers, you could get meat, and we gathered mushrooms, and we caught eels. That was Nick and my job, was to catch eels. We didn't eat them ourselves, we fed them to the chooks. Dad hated them. Slimy, horrible things. He wouldn't touch them, but we were left to deal with the eels. So that was a huge part of our life, of learning how to catch them. And one day, the Sunday school teacher took us eeling. And she happened to be the policeman's daughter. We took her down to the river. We got our lines out with a big hunk of meat on the end. Filled up this thing. It was a great big rainbow trout. People mumbling about, you're going to be arrested. You didn't have a trout fishing license. I was about 5 at the time. She said, the Sunday school teacher will tell her father was the cop. We got really terrified. Anyway, nothing came of it. Thank God. It was my first and only rainbow trout I've ever caught. Illegally, but it was captured. But the other thing we had in those early days in Ohura was learning all our things, learning writing and all that stuff. And it was a happy time. On one occasion, I remember the only incident that harmed Nick. I don't know how it happened, but an opossum, an Australian possum, turned up under the front steps. And Nick got a stick out, went under there and started poking it. And the possum came out like a wild beast and attacked him. And it tore shreds off the back of his neck. And if you got any early photos of Nick, you often see him with this bandage around his neck. And it was because of this very severe lacerations he got. It was septic. It was a bad time to him.
Bloody Aussies, eh?
I asked him about that scar, Mike.
Yeah, has he still got the scar?
Yeah. He reckoned he didn't know.
Well, that explains
No,
it. There we go. I remember the
It's
stuff.
about 1945 or something like that. Nick grabbed it and tried to grab it, and he got attacked. Bad wound on the back of the neck with bandages all over him. That was the only time I remember he was sick or injured himself. He looked after himself, and we loved growing up together. We shared everything. And our mother made sure that we were dressed identically. And every time at Christmas, you only need to open one present lot, because he was going to get the same. Then we closely looked. No, he's got one slightly bigger. The parents are very careful to evenly look after us. And so I put my own happy life down to a good start, and I think he would say the same thing. A good start with careful parents, loving parents who looked after us beautifully. And at that time, there was another, talk about the early Second World War and up to the 50s, Waiheke Island became a huge part of our lives. Because that's where my mother's family had a batch. So virtually all our holidays for those years were spent at only Tangi Beach on Waiheke. And that was another notable place for us growing up. We learnt swimming, how to swim in the surf, how to catch fish off the rocks, how to row boats, anything to do with the sea. It was our sea place, and that's our love of the sea came from those holidays. And I think all parents taking their kids on holidays should be thanked for what they do, because they don't realise probably at the time. This is just a good fun we're having, aren't we? But it plants something in their heart, and they never forget it. So Nick and I had a love for the sea, and it eventuated in various ways. Mainly when we moved to Hamilton later, we grew up near the lake, and we lived by a lake, we better get a yacht. There's a yacht club there, so we did. We saved up money by selling beer bottles. Not my father's ones, but we used to go to the rugby games and collect up the bottles and sell them. We'd get a penny each for each beer bottle. We bought a yacht based on beer bottles. Our first big business deal. Anyway, we loved the yacht, and John and two of it, it was a two-man boat, but of course the three of us, we sailed together as a crew of three. And Nick quickly became the helmsman. He had an inborn skill, knowledge. I don't know where he got it from, but he knew exactly how to sail a boat. And naturally did it. And he won. In Hamilton, we won the North Island Championship in our Z class, and then he won nominated. He was the rep for the Waikato and the Tanner's Cup, which is for the P-class yachts. We all went up to Whangarei, watched Nick sail, and the first race, all the yachts were tearing down the harbour, and the binoculars said, "Where's Nick?" And somebody said, "There he is." He got caught in the tide going the other way. He ended up in the mangroves. So he quickly learned from that, and he won the second race. Believe it, amazing. He's just local knowledge, you see. Yeah. But yes, he was very skilled at that. I didn't mention Eltham earlier on, but it's quite significant in the family because John and Nick, when we were there, they were taught music by the Catholic nuns. I refused. I was interested in animals and birds and things, nature, but not music. So I missed out on my chance. I was given the chance, I didn't take it. And to this day, I've never become a musician. But John and Nick got their beginnings in the theory of music, how to read music, how to scales and all that sort of thing. And it gave them that little start. Each of them grew it from there. John in a very big way, when we got to running his own band and organising dances, all the music, and Nick quickly followed. But the other thing we had in those days were grandparents, the Lambert, my mother's parents, the Lamberts. They were very influential with the music side of the family as well. They were the whole family of musicians. 80-year-old lady playing the banjo. Papa Lambert was a cellist, conductor, And John and Nick used to observe all this, and it became very much the next generation of musicians. And it's continuing. You see music everywhere in this family, except here. I'll sing you a song later. What else? Just a few. I could mention Hamilton. I mentioned the yachting there. That was very important. But Nick developed a couple of very good friends at school there. One was called Warren Blake, who became a ocean-going sailor and started his own business eventually in Malaysia, doing charter cruising. And Nick kept in touch with him, and I crewed on his trimaran yacht for a few years, sailing around the Hauraki Gulf. So he was very influential. And there was also David Mitchell in his class at school. And David became a leading architect in New Zealand. In fact, David was a classmate, Nick was a classmate of David at the School of Architecture in the 50s, so early 60s, and kept in touch. And one time Nick came over, he was having a trip in his mind to visit old friends and places. So he came to stay with us, and I said, what do you want to do? And he gave me a list. I want to go and see Dave Mitchell's new house, which is just up the road here, further down towards Takapuna actually. And they were still building it, and we poked around there. Then we went up to Marsh Cook's place in Franklin Road, another leading architect at that time. And then there were two houses he designed himself. First of all, our parents' house, and then there was another one, but I can't remember where it was, but it was over this way somewhere. Torbay. Yeah, Torbay. So he had a good sense of his own skills. He was a drafting type architect, not a computer person, who was in demand because a lot of the young guys working on these big jobs didn't know how to do drafting by hand, and Nick did. And he got a lot of jobs through that, just finishing off working drawings and that sort of thing. And,
Mike, we've seen David Mitchell's oldest son, Ben Mitchell, on Sunday. Oh. He's coming over from Australia for his 60th birthday. Oh. I just wanted to let you know that.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's well.
Yeah, special.
That's good. I never knew his family.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of, I don't want to go over all these details, but I would like to mention his sporting talents. Well, I mentioned yachting was one thing, but at high school in Hamilton he was a good rugby player. He was actually a hooker in the front row, in the middle, hooking the ball out. But he was a bit taller than the guys beside him. There's one prop here and one, her Nick's head sticking out. So he had to bend down a long way to do his hooking. But he learned his hooking skills from a famous All Black called Has Catley, who was still around the Waikato at the time. And Nick noted how he sort of hung on these props, scraped along the ground and got the ball out. So he was a hooker and very good at that. And there was something else. I can't remember what. Or tennis. Again in Hamilton. There was a company called Wiseman's. They used to put on sports tournaments in the school holidays for kids, and mainly tennis. Nick and I used to enter these things. There were singles and doubles. Anyway, and at that time there was Tip Top, I think it was Tip Top. They'd introduced the little orange ice pots called TT2s. Yes. Remember those?
Yes.
That was the style, that was more important than tennis. It was wonderful. Go along, get your feet at TT2s. It was great. But Nick was in the doubles, and he won. He won the whole tournament with his partner. And his partner was a fellow called Ian Cookham. And Ian went on to become the New Zealand singles champ. So he was in extremely good company. And but Nick didn't carry on with tennis, but that was his great achievement in that. He wasn't a cricketer, never saw anything. He didn't understand cricket. He thought it was like playing table tennis. As a batsman at each end. And you hit the ball and the next guy was supposed to hit it back to you. No, that's not what you do in cricket. Anyway, he had no interest in that. And finally, I just wanted, not finally, but just a word about Avondale. That was a time, Helen had been born by that time, in 1950, in Eltham and Taranaki. And by the time we moved to Avondale, our family, that was the last time our whole family were together. Mum and Dad and all of us in this wonderful big old house over in Avondale. And we, over the years, one of the big things that happened there was the music. John and Nick and other groups playing in our house. We had a sort of a big stage downstairs. And then the sailing became another big thing. We bought a mullet boat called the Fleetwood. Good fast boat, and Nick and I and John and others were crewing it. We had races around the Gulf, and we did very well with that. Anniversary regatta, we capsized. Wasn't very pleasant, but anyway, that was all. Nick was the leading light in the sailing, and of course then in Avondale the British City Dasman came along, and Nick double bass and also played the tuba. Some of you got old family photos.
I've got the tuba.
Have you got the tuba photo?
Yeah, I've got the tuba.
Got the tuba.
I've got it. Yeah, John, we went to a music shop, and John goes, "Oh, that's your father's tuba." I'm like, "I want it," because Dad's in Australia. I'm like, and so I've got it, but it needs polishing. I don't know what.
Remember the tuba was a huge thing, wasn't it?
Huge.
Probably take it to.
It was a monster. It was a big circular one, wasn't it?
Oh, it's huge.
Sort of in your head.
The boys have all blown on it.
Attempted to,
Keys, yeah. I don't know. You decide what we're going to do with it, all right?
I'll just finish off then with, I worked away briefly through growing up. And I say we're all together right up to the Avondale part of it, and then we started to disappear into different directions. I went into forestry work down the King's Country, and later on at the university. John was teaching by that time, country service way up in the north, and Helen was still around, living here at home, and then later on getting married and then moving down to the Coromandel. And then if we just come back to Campbell's Bay here, I mentioned about the house up there, and shortly after that I tended to lose contact with him. They went to Australia, and he used to send us information, news updates. He was catching fish on Kangaroo Island. That sounded all very exciting. So he kept us well informed about what was going on. And then but later on came Ruth, Hare Krishna, and I didn't understand Hare Krishna. I know Nick was well skilled in it. He was devoted to it, and he built up connections, friends, lifelong friends, many of you here, and became an important part of his life. Last time I saw Nick was when we came over for the wedding, Nadia and Jason's wedding, and stayed in the house. And Nick was there looking after us, and often seemed to be away with the fairies. But he was obviously thinking about something. And on one occasion I was sitting there, he wasn't saying anything, I wasn't saying, and Nehemiah was there. And suddenly he yelled out, "There's a snake!" The big snake. You remember it? That was fantastic. It made the trip. It was wonderful. So I'm going to finish by saying, in summary, Nick, what has it meant to all of us? It's family, it's friends, music, architecture, Hare Krishna. Kia ora mai. Let me finish with a little karakia, little waiata, te aroha. Love, hope, and peace. Love, hope and peace to us all. Te aloha, te whakapono, me te rangi mai, atu atu. Kia ora.
Kia ora.